Some world records are more prestigious than others, and there are some world records that no one wants. One of them granted Maurice the not-so-glorious title of the worst golfer in the world. Despite this, he still became an inspiration to many and changed the world of golfing forever. It's 1974 and Maurice is comfortably seated on his couch while channel surfing on his brand new TV. Suddenly, he comes across a live broadcast of a golf championship and instantly falls in love with the sport. Maurice has never played golf before. Heck, he doesn't even know the rules, but it doesn't matter. It's decided he will become a professional golfer. For him, it doesn't matter if he is a 45-year-old man from the working class. He will find a way to achieve his dream, even if it means cheating his way into it. Fast forward a few months later to the British Open, one of the most prestigious golf tournaments in the world. Many cameras are pointed at the professionals while people in the crowd try to get a better view of the golfers. But among the athletes, there is a man who doesn't really belong on the golf course. This is Maurice, and there is no way he should be playing in this big tournament. Yet, here he is, ready to show the world what he is made of. He is confident in his own talent and ability to play golf at the highest level. This is a golden opportunity, a chance he created and he doesn't intend to let it go to waste. And indeed, this day he will impress everyone by beating a world record that still holds almost 50 years later. But how did he end up at the British Open in the first place? And what will become of him after the tournament? This is the story of the world's worst golfer, Maurice Flitcroft. Maurice Flitcroft was born on November 23, 1929 in Manchester in England. And from the beginning, he is a very curious kid. He loves everything related to arts, from poetry to drawing and even painting. He also tries many sports and is not half bad at them. But at school, it's a different story. And, like most of the kids in his situation, he ends up working at the local shipyard, basically the only place where it's easy to get a job without any education. And that's for a good reason. Working at the shipyard is exhausting, and it doesn't pay very well. But it's not like Maurice has a choice. After all, he needs to pay the bills. For most people, this sad reality is enough to keep them tied to a crappy job for their entire lives. However, Maurice has a different idea. He would rather be broke than settle for a job he hates. So he quits and he makes a promise to himself. He will always put his happiness first. Following this principle, he spends the next 20 years of his life doing a number of odd jobs, hoping to find something he truly enjoys. First, he tries the merchant navy, thinking it would be a great way to travel the world for free and explore new countries. But during his first assignment, the ship makes a stop at Gibraltar, and Maurice enjoys the break a little too much. He has so much fun going to the beach and having cocktails with tourists that he loses track of time and misses the boat. Of course, he gets fired. Then he becomes a firefighter. And honestly, for a while, it goes pretty well. Well, that is until he punches a colleague over a bag of chips. Next, he turns into a bus driver. But once again, this doesn't last very long, as he slaps a passenger for refusing to stop smoking in the bus. Well done, Maurice. Honestly, I'm with you on that one. But after this incident, he continues to hop from job to job and he does basically every job possible. He works in construction, he washes dishes for a restaurant, and he even sells ice cream at some point. But every single time, it ends up in some kind of conflict. Maurice, now in his 40s, finally realizes it may be time to settle down. He has done everything, but it doesn't seem like there is any job made for him anywhere. Besides, he is now a married man, which comes with some responsibilities. So, he returns to the shipyard, the first job he had and eventually the only one where he managed to not get fired. This time, Maurice doesn't want to take any risk of fighting with anyone, so he becomes a crane operator. This is not a job that really makes him happy, But it's not because he has settled for a normal job that he forgot his principle of putting his happiness first. He just tweaked it a little. If he can't find a job that truly makes him happy, then he will find something else. And this is exactly when golf comes into play. You see, most people fall in love with a sport or a hobby early on in their lives, but Maurice is already 45 years old when he discovers golf. One day, while he is watching TV, he randomly tunes into a channel that is showing golf. For Maurice, it's love at first sight. He cannot quite comprehend why, but he is instantly mesmerized by the way the players swing their club, walk the course, and glance at the camera. His fascination isn't that of a spectator or a casual player. It's the fascination of a man who wants to play golf at the highest level. With no time to waste, he starts training for a competition right away. But there is one little problem. Maurice doesn't have any money, and playing golf is expensive. He cannot really afford to train on a real golf course. So instead, he practices everywhere he can. But playing golf at home or in the street has its limits, and he soon finds himself needing a bigger space to work on his swings. After some research, he finds the perfect location. Well, it's not perfect for golfing, but it's perfect for what he is looking for. 2 hours from his home, there is a beach on a remote island where no one ever goes because of the terrible weather. Over there, it's constantly raining and it's very windy, but at least he doesn't risk breaking anything or injuring anyone, and for several months, he goes over there every day after work to improve his skills. But his obsession doesn't take a break. Maurice also practices his swings at work while on his crane. Everyone thinks he has become crazy, but he doesn't care. When he is not swinging his club, he is reading golf books and magazines to learn more about the sport. And it's by reading one of these magazines that he stumbles upon the British Open, one of the world's most prestigious golf tournaments held every year in the UK. Maurice now feels ready. He has the skills and knowledge necessary to compete. He is not quite sure how yet, but this is the competition he will do. In order to participate in the British Open, Maurice has to fill out a form. So he gets the form and starts entering his name, birth date, and other usual details. But then it becomes a bit more complicated and he has to indicate his status. There is a choice between professional and amateur. Well, Maurice has never played a tournament before. Heck, he never even played a real game on a golf course, so he's definitely an amateur. But the thing is that if he indicates the amateur status, he has to attach a certificate. Whereas, if he chooses professional, there is no proof required. At this point, any reasonable person would simply turn to something less ambitious, or at least try to join a club to earn the certificate. However, Maurice isn't a reasonable person. He lives life on his own terms and doesn't have time to waste with a stupid form. So, despite the situation, he indicates the professional status on the form. And guess what? It works! No one ever expected someone to have the audacity to do this. And just like that, Maurice, a complete novice, is now registered to play the British Open as a professional. I know, it sounds too easy, but we tend to underestimate what we can achieve with a bit of luck and some audacity. And from the point of view of his friends and family, it looks like the hard work Maurice puts in is finally paying off. But participating in the Open isn't enough for him. He wants to be competitive and rival the true professionals. And for that, he needs to step up his golfing skills. So Maurice enters his training arc. That rainy and windy beach doesn't cut it anymore. He now practices on a real golf course near his home. But he still cannot afford a membership. So how does he do it? Well, he wakes up in the middle of the night and goes to the golf course at around 4 AM to practice his swings. He gets in and out by jumping over a fence and playing as much as he can before the course officially opens. But this is just during the morning. Later in the day, he moves to football fields and keeps on refining his technique. He trains like crazy, giving everything he has, day after day, so much so that he often comes back home with bleeding fingers from all his swings. But after several months of intense training, the day of the tournament has finally arrived. It's July 1st, 1976, when Maurice officially and legally steps onto a golf course for the first time in his life. On such an important day, You'd think Maurice would make sure to be ready on time, but you couldn't be more wrong. Maurice being Maurice, of course he gets lost on his way to the event location. And of course he forgets his golf balls in his hotel room and has to buy some on the way. But Maurice doesn't just come in late to the first day of the competition. He also unwillingly attracts the attention of the public before he even sets foot on the golf course. Indeed, he is so late that he doesn't even have time to dress himself in the locker room. So instead, he starts taking his clothes off and changing himself right in front of everyone in the middle of the parking lot. As if he didn't stand out enough already, his outfit looks like it's straight out of a detective movie. But not a serious one like Sherlock Holmes. No, he looks more like the detective in The Pink Panther. But finally, he is ready and makes his appearance on the pitch. The presenter announces his name and he receives a few polite claps. At this point, besides his name and his eccentric behavior, people have no idea who he is, but a small crowd already starts gathering around this unusual golfer. And by chance, Maurice is chosen to make the opening shot of the day. But there is one more problem. He realizes that he did not only forget his golf balls, but also most of his golf clubs. For those who know nothing about golf, basically golfers use different clubs with different designs for different kinds of swings. For example, they're not going to use the same club whether they need to strike the ball far away or make a short, accurate strike. So, although Maurice is able to borrow a few clubs at the last minute, they are different from the ones he practiced with. Because of that, it's going to be hard to perform as well as he wants. But this is the start of his professional career, and he can't back down now. Sure, things haven't gone exactly as planned, but he's here now. And this is the opportunity he has dreamed of. In this moment, he can show the world the results of his hard work and his dedication. As he sets up the ball and positions himself, he takes a deep breath and remembers all his training, from the beach to his crane, from the football field to the early mornings on the golf course. And finally, he hits the ball. But unfortunately for Maurice, things are about to turn out very differently from what he imagines and hopes for. His first shot goes straight up in the air and lands just a few feet ahead despite the hole being hundreds of feet away. And suddenly, everyone realizes that Maurice isn't some kind of eccentric professional. He is simply a fraud. Watching it on TV, golf looks quite simple, Maurice had always thought. But on the pitch, he is forced to face reality. Competing in golf at a professional level, it doesn't just happen. And well, clearly, Maurice doesn't belong in the British Open. But although he has been exposed for who he truly is, the organizers can't technically do anything about it. Sure, he didn't fill out the form properly, but the situation is so bizarre that the organizers have no rule in place for such a case. And they cannot kick him out of the tournament just because he plays poorly. So, despite his disastrous first swing, Maurice keeps on playing. But rather than redeeming himself, he keeps making a fool of himself in front of a growing crowd as spectators are showing up in masses to witness this special golfer. But the real professionals who are playing right after him are not amused. They consider Maurice's performance a disgrace to the sport. But more importantly, they claim it disturbs their own ability to play properly and they demand their entry fee to be reimbursed. But Maurice is still playing. Hole after hole, he needs more strikes than any other golfer on the course has ever needed. At some point, his ball gets stuck in the sand and Maurice struggles so much to get out of it that the officials can't keep up with how many times he hits the ball. It's so ridiculous that they literally give up on counting and just write an interrogation point next to a made-up score. Golf is normally a serious sport. It can be pretty snobbish at times, but on this day, it turns into a spectacle to the amusement of some, but to the frustration of many. In this chaos, and between people who mock him and others who urge him to get out of the course, Maurice remains persistent. At this point, he is well aware that he has no chance of qualifying for the next round. Yet, He refuses to leave until he finishes the tournament. And he does! Maurice eventually manages to complete the course, that is, with a historic score of 121 strokes, the worst score ever recorded in the 100-year history of the British Open. Of course, he is eliminated from the competition, but that's not what's important. What really matters for Maurice is that he did finish the course, and from here, he can only go up, or so he thinks. Because his abysmal performance doesn't go unnoticed, he has accidentally become a legend, and this will lead to consequences Maurice definitely doesn't anticipate. After his disastrous performance, Maurice returns to the parking lot only to find a huge crowd in a frenzy waiting for him. They all want to see and celebrate the man who has become a sensation in a single day. His unlikely performance in a sport that is typically so uptight delighted everyone, turning him into an instant star. Many journalists rushed to interview Maurice, asking why he performed so poorly. Maurice doesn't just remain unfazed, he is actually loving the attention. He has a lot of excuses to share with the journalists. He blames the stress of being late, the heat of the day, and especially the fact that he forgot his favorite club in his hotel room. For him, the outcome would have been much different otherwise. At this moment, no one knows if he is just joking or if he is completely delusional. But what is certain is that when Maurice leaves the place, it's with the status of a legend. As he prepares to get into his car, he turns to the journalist and the crowd one last time and tells them, quote, "See you next year," unquote. Yeah, for Maurice, this is only the beginning of his professional career, and he is confident that he will be able to play again in the British Open the following year. But not everyone is happy about the situation. Across the country, the president of the British Golf Association receives a call informing him of Maurice's catastrophic score. In a panic, the Golf Association begs journalists to remain silent about this story. But it's too late, and word has already spread. This is disastrous for the prestigious image of their event. And before long, the Golf Association, powerless, watches the story spread like wildfire in newspapers nationwide. But most newspapers talk about Maurice as if what he did was some kind of joke. They mock him and present him as a buffoon who came to entertain the crowd. Maurice doesn't like this kind of treatment one bit. He genuinely tried his best. He didn't mean to perform so terribly. This frustration intensifies his motivation to train even harder and come back stronger the following year. But the Golf Association is determined to make sure this embarrassment never happens again. And to ensure this, they decide to ban Maurice from participating in the British Open for the rest of his life. Do you really think Maurice is going to give up just because he has been banned? Of course not. Maurice sends letters to the British Golf Association and desperately tries to make them change their mind. But there is no way they will allow him to participate again. Never mind that, Maurice will find another way to get into the competition. And to do so, he decides to register under another name. Maurice becomes Ginny Pacheco. Then he fills out the form exactly like the previous one, and for a second time, this is enough to bypass the verification system of the British Open. I know, it's unbelievable. Even after what happened, they still haven't learned their lesson. But this time Maurice is serious. He is so serious, in fact, that he quits his job to dedicate himself 100% to golf. How is he going to provide for his needs? Well, his wife is here for him through thick and thin. Seeing the dedication of her husband, she decides to support him in his crazy dream. I don't know if she's as crazy as Maurice, but one thing is sure, she is a keeper. It's 1978, and at this point, Maurice is getting close to 50 years old. But this doesn't change anything. He is still determined to become a professional golfer. Yeah, he isn't the most rational man out there, but something we can't take away from him is how persistent he is. Once more, it's the day of the British Open, and unlike the Golfing Association, who didn't change the process to get in the tournament, Maurice has learned from his past mistakes. Sorry, I forgot, it's not Maurice, but Ginny Paczeki who presents himself on the course. And to avoid being recognized, he arrives wearing a hat, glasses, and a fake mustache. And if you think that this is too obvious and that no one is going to fall for it, well, you are incorrect. As crazy as it sounds, his plan works, and he is about to play for the second time in the British Open. Now, this doesn't last very long, because his first shot lands directly in a tree, and the officials quickly uncover who is behind this not-so-mysterious character. This time, they are not having it. They are kicking him out, but Maurice doesn't lose his composure. He missed his first shot, but this is just a fluke. It can happen to anyone. So he takes a deep breath, he raises his club and hits the ball. And this time, it's a good one. It's a beautiful shot. No, of course not. He ends up hitting another tree. After that, Maurice has no excuse. He's kind of forced out of the course, but not without demanding his entry fee be reimbursed. However, don't think the story is over yet. Maurice hasn't said his last word. He gets back to training and registers a couple years later in 1980 under yet another name. This time, Maurice becomes Gerald Hoppe, a professional golfer from Switzerland. But Maurice, who was never rich to begin with, is now completely broke. Remember, he stopped working a while back to dedicate himself fully to golf. He cannot even afford a hotel room anymore, so he just sleeps in a tent near the competition. A bit too close to the competition actually. Again, the British Open is a prestigious golf tournament, so imagine the reaction of the organizers when they come in the morning of the competition just to find a tent near the golf course. It just looks like there is a homeless guy camping there, which of course isn't the kind of image they want to portray. So Maurice starts the day with quite a rough awakening as officials open his tent and kick him out of the course. Maurice doesn't even have a chance to understand what is going on, that he finds himself on his way back home without swinging his club a single time. But once again, the following year, he comes back under another fake identity. This time, he is able to play a few holes before being recognized, but he still ends up being kicked out of the course before he could finish the tournament. Maurice perseveres, becoming in turn James Beaujolais, Arnold Palmtree, and Manfred von Hofmannsthal. Besides Maurice's persistence, something else we cannot take away from him is his creativity. In total, Maurice tries to enter the British Open on 6 occasions, and every time he gets caught and kicked out, but not before he exasperates a few and entertains a few more. And every time, somehow he manages to get his entry fee reimbursed. But in 1983, after getting booted of the event as usual, he meets a journalist in the parking lot. It's true that Maurice's story really spread the first time he participated in the British Open, but since then, people haven't really heard about him anymore. But this time, the journalist publishes an interview with Maurice that captures the public's attention like never before. In the publication, Maurice explains how he manages to enter the competition year after year. He appears as a bit of a weirdo, but a charming and harmless weirdo that just wants to participate in the British Open. If Maurice was already a bit of a star after the first published story a few years back, now he becomes an absolute legend in the country. He is invited on a popular talk show and other media where he shares his story and his passion for golf. But Maurice's fame doesn't please everyone, especially the British Golfing Association. This is not the kind of advertisement they are looking for. They are furious against Maurice. He is already banned from the British Open, but now they decide to ban him from entering any golf course in the entire country. The Golfing Association is so traumatized by the unwanted publicity that they finally make some changes in their application system. And it's not a small update, they want to make sure no one will use Maurice's technique to participate in the British Open. Up to now, it was ridiculously easy to bypass the verification system, but after this update, it becomes basically impossible. From there, every single year, they are able to catch Maurice's application and deny him before he gets a chance to enter the golf course. And for the rest of his life, Maurice will never get another chance to play golf on an actual course in England. But surprisingly, the best is yet to come. It's now 1997, and Maurice receives a mysterious letter from the United States. More specifically, it's from a country club located in Michigan. They are inviting Maurice to a golf tournament, but not any tournament. This is a competition organized in his honor. Maurice is confused. He doesn't comprehend what is the meaning of it. He used to jump over fences at 5 a.m. or disguise himself in order to play on a golf course. But now he is invited to play in a competition organized to celebrate him? This looks suspicious. But it's real. It's not a joke. Golf has a reputation to be an elite sport, exclusive to rich people. Many want to preserve this prestigious image, and that's why the British Golf Association hates Maurice so much. But others, like the president of this Michigan country club, actually dream of making golf more accessible. And who else would be a better ambassador than Maurice to open up the sport to everyone? This tournament is the recognition of his efforts throughout all these years. Upon realizing this, Maurice starts tearing up. He runs to his wife to bring her the news. She supported him all these years, and for so long, it looked like both of them were stupid. But it wasn't for nothing. Somewhere else in the world, there are people who understand him. Then, Maurice and his wife are offered a plane ticket in business class, and they arrive in Michigan. On the golf course, he is greeted by hundreds of people who are here to celebrate and play alongside him. And for the first time in his life, he walks on a golf course in front of people who know his true identity, but still decide to cheer him up rather than mock him. He has no disguise. He doesn't need to hide. He stands proudly, and his wife is here to witness it. Maurice is getting ready for his first strike. He sets up the ball and positions himself. He takes a deep breath, and finally, he swings his club. Surprisingly, the ball lands very close to the hole, and throughout the full event, swing after swing and hole after hole, Maurice performs the best he ever has. On that day, Maurice is able to shine like he always dreamed of. It took a long time, but eventually his passion and determination paid off. Today, Maurice isn't among us anymore, but the tournament in his honor continues to be held every year with special prizes for the worst performers, including goldfish, bowling balls, and lessons with professional golfers. The truth is that there isn't just one way to inspire others. Sure, Maurice was not a very skilled golfer, but sometimes it's not so much about talent but audacity. Maurice didn't conform, he just did what he enjoyed, no matter what everyone else thought about him. Maybe he should have never ended up playing in the British Open, but by doing so, he managed to touch people throughout the world and truly made a difference. So yes, in the end, he never managed to win the British Open or to become a professional golfer. But the most important thing is elsewhere entirely. He kept the promise he made to himself early on in his life to do everything to be happy. And at that, he was as successful as one can be.